Hi guys, so putting all this tuning mechanism on the tail back together, I'm pleased to say it looks like we have a success here, because this whole mechanism here, the spring and the clutch, has all been de-rusted and cleaned and lubed, and the same goes for how all of this brass bush goes through these dual plates, and when I put it back together, we have the full 180 degree rotation, which we didn't have before. So it looks like the mechanical end of things is sorted out. So at a much later stage I can put the card dial back on here, but there's no need to go rushing into that for quite a while yet. Plenty more to do, so I can clean off the rust off the transformer and the other bits and pieces, and then we can start looking at it underneath. I have a complete set of valves now, so I got a Type 80 rectifier, and I couldn't get a 2A5E anywhere, but I got a 2A5, which is generally apparently considered an acceptable replacement. I don't know if there's any tweaks I'll have to make to how it's wired up, but yeah, so I'm quite pleased. At least when we get to it, I have a complete set of valves. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the tuning mechanism now. I've wire brushed pretty much all the rust off the transformer, giving it a little rub of WD-40 to keep the water out, or the oxygen away from it. So next task is going to be to restuff this big electrolytic here, or dual electrolytic. It's going to take a little while, but starts to get into the electronic side of things. Right, in terms of recapping, I don't think there's a lot to do here, because I'm going to assume right off the bat that these large black guys are okay. And so the immediate suspects are these three guys right here, as well as the big electrolytic, of course. The big electrolytic has got a 10 microfarad and a 4 microfarad in it. And so here's a 10, and here's a 4.7. And I always get nervous whether these little tiny caps can carry the load, but they seem to be able to, and so far I haven't had one pop. This guy here is a 0.1, so no problem there. And I might even restuff this and just put this guy inside. This guy is a 0.5. I don't have a 0.5 or even a 0.47. So either I got to order something up, or I'm going to have to parallel some caps up to get the closest I can to that value. And then this guy here is an electrolytic. This guy is 25 microfarads. Yeah, kind of all being in the same casing like that is a little bit of a, kind of throws you off, but yeah, this is 25 microfarad. It's only rated at 25 to 35 volts, so yeah, I could probably stuff something in there as well, depending on how easy it is to get the contents out. So yeah, so this is the only problematic guy at the moment. Yeah, anyway, we'll get on and do these and the electrolytic. So I've taken the large electrolytic out to restuff it. There were some signs of chemical residue underneath the mounting nut, so I thought even if it measured okay, I'm not going to trust it, so we're going to restuff it. So I've prized open the cap here. Unfortunately, this top piece pulls out quite easily, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's pretty shrunken and dried up inside there. So I don't think it'll give too much trouble to pull it out, and then we can clean it up and see about putting the new ones in the can. Here it is, all nice and guppy, and yeah, full of gunk. So this is the end cap of the electrolytic, and I was kind of hoping I could just solder my new caps onto these tags here, but unfortunately essentially the way this thing has been put together is you have an aluminium rivet which goes through the whole cap, and it's peened over on this end when they put the solder tag on, and then they put the aluminium foil on the other end, and then they put a washer, and then they peen that over as well. So it's a rivet that's sort of peened over on both sides. So this is all aluminium, so I can't solder to this. So what I've done on the first one here is just file off the peened headed rivet so I could get rid of all the aluminium foil and stuff. And I guess my best option at this point is to drill a hole in this center shaft and screw a solder tag onto it so that I have something I can solder to, like at this end. And then if that all works and I have good connectivity, then I can just put sort of glue around it to give it extra strength. Since I can't solder anything directly onto these contact points here. So yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, so here's the interim solution here. Well, I hope here's the permanent solution. So I drilled 2 holes down the center of the rivet, just enough for these self-tappers to be able to make a thread and screw it down. And so I had a look through my bag of solder tags, and I found one that looked pretty close to what I need. So I have good electrical connectivity both sides, and so yeah, I'd say we'll call that done, and we can get ready for soldering in the new electrolytics to those tags. Okay, so here is the rebuilt dual electrolytic. Since the negative is actually the casing of the can, I've just put a couple of flying leads to go 180 degrees apart and jam those in when I put it back, and then hopefully that'll be okay, but we'll give it a good test when it's done. Okay, so there's the large electrolytic refitted. I cleaned up the outside as best I could. I had to leave where the print was because I thought I'd better leave that print on there rather than polish it off. So I've done some recapping on the underside here. So the 25 microfarad electrolytic that was here, I replaced, for at least for the moment, with 22. The 0.1 is replaced with a 0.1. The 0.5 I clearly didn't have, so I have 2 0.22s and a 0.1 in parallel, just to see how we go. And I think that's all I'm going to do in terms of recapping at the moment. I'm going to hope all these plastic guys here are okay for the time being. So next is replace the mains cord. Let's put a fuse in it. Yeah, we might be close to firing this puppy up. Right, so I've stuffed the electrolytic. I've replaced some caps underneath. Replaced the mains cord, added a fuse, temporary aerial, just stuffed in here. And so we have electric enable, and for the first time in probably some considerable number of years, this little beast is back in the land of the living. There's probably, well, I mean, there definitely is some tweaking to do, because the only circuit diagram I have that I could find anywhere shows the audio output tube as a type 47. My set itself is marked with a 2A5E, which I couldn't find anywhere, so I've got a 2A5 in here. And so one of the things I noticed at the moment is that the volume control, you get not a lot of change until you get about 80% of the way up the travel, and then you get all your volume in the last sort of 20% of the track. So this may be to do with how this guy here is biased, and it may need some slight changes, but we're in business at least. And so now that I have a working set, working chassis, I can get on with the rest of the restore. Because things like these guys are quite badly rusted, and the caps are rusted, so we'll probably have a look at those. Not quite sure what to do with the chassis itself though. So this dial bulb is busted, it was blown. But this one is okay. So if I switch to long wave, you see this light comes on. When I switch to medium wave, this light should come on, but it does not. And so yeah, it's an interesting way the sort of whole dial and cursor works. So yeah, that'll be neat when I get it all back together. But at least now I have the as I say, it's daytime now, so the reception here in medium wave is really bad, so you won't pick up too much. So I'm using my local transmitter just to demo. So yeah, I got to put the dial, all this whole mechanism back together. One slight little mishap putting this thing back together is that when I reinserted the valve or the tube into the socket here, and I didn't use a whole lot of force, so the rivet on this side which was holding it must have been just barely hanging on, because when I pressed the tube in, it pushed the socket out of the rivet, and so I just had to quickly put it back together with a 3mm nut and bolt, which I mean, where it is in the set will never be seen, but I might do something else with it later. But for now, at least it's functional and working. But yeah, I mean, it was obvious when I looked underneath that it wasn't held, there wasn't a lot of metal holding it, so I guess replaced the valve one too many times, and it gave way. Well, I decided to strip the finish off the cab. There were so many scratches and dents and etc., etc. I thought The only chance of ever getting this thing looking halfway decent is to strip the cab. So I've just done this side, and I'll work my way around, and some considerable time later we'll be back down to the bare wood. This is pretty much sanded to thickness now, so I'll just have to tone it in a little bit better as we go along. I have the cab completely stripped at this point, and I'm looking at the various little things that need correcting. One of the things that shows up pretty immediately is there's a shadow line where the wood underneath has shrunk versus the form behind here, and so it leaves a shadow line, which I've just run some sandpaper over it just so you can see it, and so I'm going to see, because it looks like a dark line, and I've successfully got rid of it mostly down at the bottom here, so I'm going to see if I can get rid of it the rest of the way. There we go from there. Okay, it's mostly gone. I might leave it like that. I'm just so paranoid about sanding this veneer because there is so little of it. But yeah, it's looking a lot better now, in the sense that the finish is nice and even. And a lot of those scratches are obviously gone. And so, yeah, I guess wood filler and the usual stuff. And I'm probably just going to finish it as it is. Because yeah, I think that's pretty much the way it was when it was originally made. The dent on the top, I won't be able to get that out, so I'll have to fill it. So yeah, one step forward. Okay, I'm almost there. Still have a bit of color matching to do with the foot over there, but I've been steaming the dents here with reasonable success, I'd say. There's a lot of them still visible, of course, but they're not anywhere near as noticeable and as deep as they were before, and with enough coats of lacquer we might be able to actually get away with it. So of course when I steam out each individual dent with a damp cloth and soldering iron, it takes all the color out of the wood, so you end up with all these bleached spots. So to fix that, what I'm using is a mixture of acetone and a wood stain, and this one's called Vintage Amber. And so I just dip a paper towel into that and rub it, and it restores evenness of color to the wood. So yeah, I think a little bit more on that foot over there, and yeah, but basically it's coming along.